Good morning, this is Brigid, and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I usually have been using a little bit of a filter in the mornings just to kind of even out the light in this room, but today I'm like, I think it looks okay. I don't necessarily need a filter today. So, I've woke up a little later this morning. I think I started my Rouhani at about a little before 5, and then got up, and good morning, Sam. So I guess I've got a bit of an early start today, and and my mind is running with a lot of different ideas about what I'm going to be doing this month, and the different things that I want to do, particularly with the Rouhani, because that's even though I'm doing a lot of other stuff as well. I'm working on publishing somebody's book on my imprint. I'm working on editing a book for somebody else. I have this dream analysis class coming up that I've got to finish my slides and stuff for on Saturday. And I've also got to go out and get the yard work done today. So, I have a lot going on here, and I have some appointments and stuff this week. But the topic that really came up for me today, which, by the way, I remember I was complaining last week about, it's hot, it's oppressive. Now, yesterday it cooled out, and it was like a beautiful day. Like it was very breezy, and I had all my windows open, and all this air came in, and it just feels so good to have cool air. I know it's going to get hot again by Wednesday, but it's going to kind of go back and forth. We're not going to be in that like we're baking inside the oven kind of a thing. So that actually makes me really happy, because I don't feel like I'm so oppressed by the heat. Don't feel oppressed by a lot of other things either. I don't want to turn these live streams into an endless talking about Rouhani, but right now I'm just really hot on it. I'm probably going to offer some free information sessions on it. I'll do virtual ones, and then I'm also going to see if I can do an in-person one. One of the stores where where the owner would like me to come up and do Rouhani, and probably doing some Reiki training up there as well. But I'm going to chat with her today about getting that together, because I've already had some Rouhani appointments, and it's just phenomenal. Because like I said, I wake up, and it's like the first time I think I've woken up in a long time where I don't feel, because even though you get up and you're into what you're doing and everything, I just wake up and I was just, even so, you just kind of still feel like there's that weight on your shoulders. There's I have to carry this, and I have to carry that, and I have to carry it by myself. And what happens after a while is you realize that that's not the case. And it's just like, as soon as all that lifts, you just start, it's like the opportunities that you were having a hard time finding before, like somehow you're able to start finding them. It's just very, I don't know. I don't want to sound like, like I'm fangirling all over the whole technique, but the reality is that I'm just personally, as somebody who has been an academic, who's worked in energy work for 20 years, who's very, I tend to be fairly skeptical of some of the newer things that come in. Some of them sound a little too woo-woo, but I'm just astonished at how well this works. I guess that's really the right word. I'm just astonished, or gobsmacked. I'm just like, I can't believe how well this whole thing works. Anyway, the topic I did have for today has to do with postponement. Okay, postponement's what came up for me. And I didn't quite pull the card in this deck. Let me see if I can find it. It's because it is the Four of Swords in this deck. Okay, so it is definitely this energy of healing, right? The Four of Swords has to do with healing energy, and the times out that we take for ourselves to to recover from things when we've had certain shifts in our lives, when certain things have happened. It's just here we go. I was going to say, it was going to be the last card on the bottom, right? Here it is. Postponement. Okay, so you see the woman, like I said, there's the gray area here, but there's all this beautiful color here, but she's gray, and she's just looking at the gray, okay? And that almost gives it a vibe of like the Four of Swords, right? I'm sorry, not the Four of Swords, Four of Cups. And it's where we just kind of, we have the thing is being held out to us, but we're not seeing it. And energy ties in a little bit here, because what I think happens with a lot of people, and I think that what's happening now for a lot of people as we are, we've come out of eclipse season. Okay, I'm going back to eclipse season, but I continually also, like I was using the Rider-Waite deck the other day, and the Eight of Cups also comes up, and that card has an eclipse on it. And while I realize that eclipse is not necessarily the meaning of that card, I find that it's come up a lot since the eclipses, as though to say, hey, eclipse energy may have something to do with this shift or this change or this thing that you're walking away from. And just have my sip here. So I feel like there's just things in our lives that are changing, maybe things that we need to let go of, where we have a chance to pursue our dreams or a chance to pursue what authentically makes us happy. Now, what stops us from doing that? Well, the more that I have done more meditation work and more things trying to figure out, because again, I find that, and I don't know about you, but I find that sometimes it's like a roller coaster. You have days that seem like they're good, and then there's days when you feel like, oh my God, this is too much, and things aren't happening fast enough, and I don't, so you kind of get on this roller coaster of, kind of ups and downs depending on how things go for you. There's this back and forth and this up and down, and a lot of times, especially if you're an earth sign, but a lot of times we're just like, well, no, I need, and even the people around us make us feel like, well, no, but you have to have something very stable and grounded and secure. I will tell you this, for me, right now it's kind of funny because I have, like I said, my two main guides who I kind of work with are the Morrigan. I work with Macha, and I also work with Azrael. And I feel like I've kind of got this, this tension between the two of them, because I am thinking like, okay, in spite of the fact that things are going well, probably I should try to get some kind of part-time remote thing at least that kind of fills in the gaps, because I don't really have any safety nets right now financially. So I was like, that's just, I think that's just a very good common sense idea. But Azrael's completely against it. Like, I keep getting this message like, no, you don't need to do that, you don't need to do that, you don't need to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, the only way I can not need to do that is if like a buttload of money is coming in soon. And he's like, yeah, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And I'm like, well, is that going to happen really soon? And he's like, yeah, it's like imminent, like any second now. And then I talked to Maka, she's like, yeah, well, his idea of imminent, like, think about that. And your idea of imminent are different. And when you work with angels in an angelic time, they think something's going to, they'll tell you something's going to happen in an hour, but an hour for them might be 6 months for you. I mean, it's not, so that's also, I think, too, when you're reading cards, where you have to be careful when people ask you about, well, is this going to happen by this date, or is it going to happen at this time? And, and I think, I mean, okay, the one thing is the whole idea of living in the present, right? The idea of, worry about today, don't worry so much about outcomes. But people do ask the cards things because they want to peek at the outcome. They want an idea. The thing is, outcomes can change, circumstances can change. If you like, timelines can shift. Things can happen that can move us into different spaces, or we just may make different decisions that may change the whole course of everything. We may do a reading based on the assumption that we're going to do something one way, and then we may make a different choice, and the outcome may be completely different. So we don't always know. And so the timing of things sometimes, even if I get timing in a deck, and if I see something that looks like a rough timing, I have occasionally been really right with timing in a decks where, and really specifically, last year I had something that went on where I got, I think it was, I kept seeing like right, literally something happening like at the end of Leo and the beginning of Virgo, which is probably like the August 20 to 23-ish window in time frame. Like there was something I was going to do, and it kept saying, wait till that point, wait till that point, wait till that point. Something's going to happen at that point. Kept saying something about a woman in that point, like, don't do anything before that point, And I was just, it had to do with a place I was working, and I was thinking, I'm probably going to get out of here by the end of August, but I wasn't really sure if I was going to do it or not. And then, but it kept telling me, wait. And I had no idea what any of that meant, but I was just like, okay. And then I think it was the 23rd of August that I got a phone call from the owner of the place saying, hi, we're closing and we're not doing these services anymore. So it was literally like, so there was an example of where timing, I had the exactly right timing on something. But I don't know that as a general rule. Sometimes people will say to me, like, they'll do a reading. If like I said, I tend to prefer to do more of the psychological, where are we at right now, what's affecting your choices kind of readings, rather than getting into that kind of stuff. But occasionally you do have people who say like, well, I haven't had a relationship in eons, so can you tell me like when my next relationship's going to be? And sometimes that's very hard to tell. I can see certain numbers in there and I could say, well, maybe it's this, but I don't want to give somebody the idea that, oh, okay, I'm targeting that date and by that date something's going to happen. I don't really want people to think that way. And sometimes people get frustrated because they want a definite, I want a number, I want a definite thing. And I'm like, well, you know, that's the kind of thing that's very fluid. And a lot of that is also based on your decisions. And it's also something that you can't control. Because when you meet somebody and you meet the, I guess what, for lack of a better phrasing, the right person, then, or the person who's just right for you, whether they end up being your long-term partner or not, that's not something that you can, you know, you can't just make up your mind. Just like, you know, like you could look through a job listing and say, okay, I'm going to apply for these 5 jobs. I mean, yeah, you could do online dating and say, okay, I'm going to check out these 5 people, but there's no guarantee that any of that, that those people will be the right people or that anything's going to go anywhere, or that you're even going to like them in the end. So it's not like one of those things where you can go out and shop for it or say, oh, I need to buy new curtains, so I'm going to go look in the catalog. That's not how love happens. Okay. It's very much more, spontaneous than that. Or at least, I don't know. Maybe, I don't like the word should, but maybe that's the way it should be. But everybody's different. So anyway, I'm talking about postponement here. Postponement is, when I think about it, that what I see for a lot of people, not just clients, but friends and other people as well, who will have this cycle of, like they're getting a very clear message from their inner guidance, their inner voice, or their intuition, their spirit guides, whatever mechanism or mode, where they have the very clear message, all the synchronicities around them, like everything is pointing to, and even readings are pointing to, okay, it's time for you to make a move. Like you need to get out of this crappy job that you hate. You need to, you know, you have a dream about doing X and Y. You want to do this, you want to do that. And it's time for you to get moving on that dream. And, you know, you want to pick up and move to your favorite place. Okay, well, it's time for you to get up and do that. And what will happen is we will step back and we'll go, oh, that's great. Yeah, it's time. That's great. I feel really good. But you know, I just got to fix this one thing. Okay, before I quit this job, I just need to make sure I have this much money in the bank. Oh, well, before I move, I just need to make sure that this thing. Oh, I need to make sure that this person is okay. And the thing is, though, what you'll find, and, you know, and again, not some of those things are legit. Obviously, yeah, if we're going to take off on a venture and we want to have some money to get started off with, you know, because, you know, we don't know what the financial success of something will be right at the beginning, right? So, yeah, very sensible to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to have some money in the bank. But then what tends to happen is we tend to kind of lean on that a little bit. Or we lean on what the situation is, because as much as we want the change, part of us doesn't want the change. There's part of us that's saying, yes, but if you make this change, you're not going to have stability. Everything's going to fall apart. What if you do this and it doesn't work? What if this? I mean, and we get this all the time. It's like relentless. And after a while, we're so exhausted from fighting with that voice that's telling us that we can't do it. Or, well, maybe you can do it, but, you know, everything else around it has to be perfect first. And, you know, and again, there is the whole thing about finishing old business, closing things up. But at the same time, it's like there's a whole lot of what's the expression that we have, like shit or get off the pot, you know. It's like there's got to be a point at which you just go for it, and that's why we'll see things like the Fool card show up, or different things that are saying, look, it's just time for you to take a risk. Or it was on the top here before, and I think I've moved it, but yeah, the Trust card. You know, you just got to jump for it, and a lot of times we tell ourselves, first of all, that we can't do it until these 5 things are settled. The second thing that we do is we say, well, I don't know that I'm capable of it. You know, we kind of talk ourselves down and go, oh, but, you know, I'm not really good at marketing. Oh, I suck at accounting. I'm not good at that. Oh, I have to manage this. Well, I don't, you know, I can't, you know, it's too much work, you know, maybe I have to wait till I have more money and I can hire somebody. You know, we kind of fall into these traps where we tell ourselves we can't do it. Or we also fall into this perfectionist trap where we get into it and say, oh, well, if I didn't do it perfectly, then that means I can't do it. Oh, I made a mistake on this. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have spent money on that. Oh, well, see, I'm obviously a failure at this. I better go back and do the other. Or we can't quite visualize the outcome yet. And that's the other piece. We may do things and say, well, obviously we know what we want. We want to do the thing we love, and we want to make plenty of money so that we can do the things that we want. Everybody has their own threshold of what plenty of money means for them. Some people want to be multimillionaires. Some people just say, look, I just want to be able to make all my bills and be able to do what I want. Everyone's kind of in their own headspace about that kind of stuff. And, but the thing is, it's what generally gets in the way of us moving ahead is ourselves. I mean, it's our own, and I don't mean this in the sense of shaming or anything. Because this is why I tell people, when you go into a thing, if people tell you, like, I'm going to sit down and say an affirmation, like, oh, I'm going to have abundance, and I'm going to have... You can wake up every morning, stare at yourself in the mirror, and say those things to yourself like 20 times. And the thing is, you're going to find that, maybe it'll make you feel better for a little while, but it's not necessarily gonna change the reality of things. Because we're too reliant on the idea, number one, that we have control over everything. Okay, that's the hardest thing. We assume that we have this action-oriented way of thinking about things. We say, okay, in order for me to have success, I have to get in and take control of everything, and I have to watch everything. I have to monitor every number. I have to monitor this and monitor that. And again, there are certain circumstances. For example, if you have lenders, if you have people who are investing in you, obviously you have to report to those investors. You've got things like that you have to address. There's certain realities that have to be balanced in here. It's not as though you can just pretend that all those things aren't there and aren't important. You don't want to fall into that total Piscean space either, where you're just like, la la la, none of that matters. I don't care. I don't know. I don't think that people can really get away with that, because at some point the reality slams down hard that, okay, that's great, but you have to ground, it's not grounded enough. You're not doing the things you need to do. But then we get discouraged because we want to spend our time creating, and we don't want to deal with the grounded things. But we also think that we need to have more control over a process. You can put energy out there, but you cannot control who's going to come in. You can have times when you have a ton of people coming in, getting your service or buying your product, whatever it is you're doing. And then you may have times when there's nothing. And, when bills are due, you start to freak out about that. You're just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so we tend to, those are the periods, especially when we tend to kind of say, oh, okay, well, I have to give up on this now. I have to go get a job. I have to do this. I have to do that. And again, everybody has to do what's right for them in the particular circumstance. But what I have found is that a lot of times it's not so much, it's a matter of taking that kind of anxiety about, what if all these things go wrong and I can't do it? It's too much pressure. It's overwhelming. And being able to kind of transmute that into saying, okay, well, the reality here is that, in order for me to do this, I still have to be able to pay the bills. I have to pay the rent, the mortgage, whatever it is you have. I have to be able to do this. I have to be able to, you kind of get into this space where you are, you know that you have to do these things. But rather than thinking yourself into a corner and thinking, oh no, or just that what you see in front of you is going to be the end product. Oh, nope, I didn't get any bookings today, so I'm not going to get any the rest of the month, and I'm not going to have any money. We kind of get very catastrophic in the way that we look at things. So this is a very hard thing to balance. And I always tell people, there's not really a quick fix to that. It's very hard to just, it's something that you have to kind of work on over time. Now again, I'm finding the Rouhani's helping me a lot with that kind of stuff, but the thing is, it's a matter of trying to find a way to take all of that anxiety and transmute it into energy into inspiration energy, I guess. Okay, well, I have this problem to solve, so, okay, how do I need to solve it? What do I need to do? Or what can I start doing? And doing it with some consideration and some deliberation, because sometimes the thing that we do is we say, oh my God, I just have to run out and do the first thing that occurs to me and to do this. And you don't always need to do that. You don't always, oftentimes that's not the right thing to do, because you go jump into something and then you just find yourself stuck in the same miserable situation you were in before. So it's like, okay, you have to, when you're in those spaces, like like we had the aloneness card, the hermit card show up the other day. It's like you want to take time out. There's kind of the postponement. You want to take a time out and say, okay, let me think about what is really needed here for me. If you're focused on money, okay, how much money do I need to do this and to pull this off? How much do I, you think about all the practical things. Okay, so I'm trying to, I did this, and this doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So what other options do I have? Where else can I go? What else can I do? Is there something else I can do? Can I change up the way I'm doing something? If marketing is our problem in a business, it's like, okay, there's a lot of people out there who will teach you about marketing in your particular niche. And not all of their ideas may work for you, but sometimes they may have a good idea about how you present yourself to people or different things. That's what I found when things were slow. I'm like, okay, well, this is where I'm going to try to catch up on this kind of stuff and see what I can potentially do differently. And so, right, and just looking at everything as an adventure, kind of an opportunity to do something new and different, and then having to have that level of trust that you will get what you need and that you will be able to solve the problems that you have. Especially if you're getting messages from your intuition, your guides, and so forth that are saying, just don't worry about it. You're not gonna lose your house. You're not gonna end up on the street. You're not gonna be without food. You're not gonna, you're not gonna have creditors knocking on your door. I mean, or if you're in a situation that's difficult like that, you will find the way out of it. You need to have that courage to say, yes, I have what it takes. Because obviously, if you've gotten far enough that you've said, okay, I've done X for a long time, whatever it is, and I'm not going to do that anymore, or I feel like in my case, I'm just, again, I always use myself as an example, not because I want to talk about myself, but because I don't want to talk about other people's situations, especially not clients. I don't like to talk about client situations because that I feel like is like a breach of something. So that's why I talk about me. So for me, it's like, okay, I had a point where I had a very, very responsible job. I was hoping about moving to an even more responsible job within the organization. And then I stopped being able, all of a sudden I was having panic attacks every time I got behind the wheel of the car. It was like the body was saying to me, stop, this is not the direction you're going in. You want to get away from this entirely. And initially I'm like, I can't get away from this. I need my health insurance. I need this X number of dollars per month. I need to do this. I need to do that. And they're like, well, you're not looking at all the ways that you can make this happen. And as it turns out, I had to, but the thing is the crisis, that tower moment, so to speak, that crisis, sometimes the crisis is there, that sense of like, what am I going to do? Is there because it's almost like, okay, think fast. Now you've got to pick a new direction. And it's not there to stomp on you and crush you. It's there to tell you, okay, you may have been pulling kind of this postponement tactic with yourself. You may be saying, okay, yes, I'm going to make this change. I've just got to do this thing over here. And I find that when that happens, when people do that and do it repeatedly you might get away with it a couple of times. But first of all, number one, they find themselves back at the same starting point where, wait a minute, I did this thing just to finish this up, but then they're not happy with that. And, and okay, we're not all happy with everything all the time, right? I mean, fair enough. But then we kind of say, okay, and then initially, like I said, if we're used to certain thing, we may start to panic and go, oh, well, I had this before, so I have to go back to this. But then you go back to that and you're like, oh, I can't go back to this. Like you're literally stuck. You're like, okay, that road isn't open anymore. Or if you try to go back down that road again, you find that you feel just as trapped as you did before. So, yeah, so there's this sense of, or you kind of try to talk yourself into kind of staying in the same space. But when you've made that change, when you've kind of been woken up to the fact that what you're doing is not working for you anymore, you may go back and you may suck it up and go in and do something every day. But again, it becomes still a soul-sucking and a soul-draining thing. You know that the thing that's going to make you feel alive is the other thing, but the work has to go into it. The work has to go into what you're doing. But they always say, you always read this, undertake to do your work joyfully, right? And then we think, yeah, well, it's easy to be joyful when you don't have to do spreadsheets and, do your accounting and think about all these 50 million different details. And again, we can get quite perfectionist about it and say, well, I can't start until absolutely all the other external conditions are perfect. And sometimes you get lucky, or sometimes people, if they have someone who is a source of money who might be able to finance them or something or help them out while they're getting going. But that can become something you rely on too. It can be a little too much of a crutch where you just say, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just get money from this person or from this situation. And we did get the compromise card the other day. I think that's part of it too. Like you may be, sometimes we do, other people are there, so we need to seek support where we can get it if we have it. But sometimes it's like, okay, all of that may run out because you're at a point where it's like, okay, it's you time, like, and you can do this. But you've been postponing trying to, figure out the new way, or allowing really more receiving is the idea that if you just if your logical mind can't figure it out, okay, if your logical mind is running into a wall, then that's when you want to let go and say, okay, then that's where the information has to come in. Again, whether you think of it as your guides, whether you think of it as your inner voice, it's probably, or both. You want to let that information come in to tell you exactly, what the next steps are. And then when you find that when you do that, then you can start to really put together a plan of action. But often, like, staring at it and thinking it to death can just make you, that other voice tends to come in, which I feel is sort of a byproduct of our rationality. It's that, yes, there can be things that keep us rational, sensible, and grounded, but then there's that other voice that is always dissecting and picking things apart, and always catastrophizing, always trying to find the worst, and saying, and making you suddenly feel very, very burdened with a whole bunch of stuff that's probably not going to happen. That's your 9 of Swords energy. And then you just feel like you have no energy to move forward with anything. So, so I think sometimes these things are happening just to kind of, and it's funny because this is actually this is more of the Justice card in here, but we have this Breakthrough card at the bottom of the deck, and it's like, we're in this space where we are, where we have to break through the things, but the hardest thing to break through is the sense of the way that we postpone things in ourselves. And we do that because, we kind of rationalize to ourselves, we have to take care of these things. And sometimes really it's like, you don't need to take care of those things. They'll take care of themselves. Because I keep getting Justice cards in my morning tarot pulls. I am too, actually. And so it's almost kind of like, okay, not only seeing the truth of a situation or seeing a situation for what it really is, but also keeping things in balance, right? Okay, let's look at how to balance things. Let's look at what we've got going on the credit and debit side of things. How are we balancing, and how do we get that balance? And how do we live in our truth too? I think it's all part of justice. Let's see what our reading is for today. For people watching and people who watch this later, what do we need to know for today? Yeah, okay, this is interesting. Okay, so our center card is maturity, Ace of Pentacles, or Ace of Rainbows in this deck. And so the maturity card, so Ace of Pentacles we know traditionally is about, either a new way of looking at finances and money, or a new financial opportunity, or a new opportunity to establish security for yourself. And the maturity card, this also suggests, though, the fact that it's called maturity is the fact that it's saying just kind of what I've just said, that you have the experience and you have the awareness. You are actually capable of doing the thing that you want to do. You're not, you didn't just, graduate high school or secondary school or whatever it is, and now you're just starting out with no experience. Like you are generally. What it's saying is that people who certainly are watching this reading, or maybe who need this reading, are people who are coming from a place of experience. You're not starting from the bottom in terms of you have a background. You may have had years of being in another career or doing something else, or there's some aspect of what you do where you are mature and experienced. You're not a newbie at the game of life, really, right? You're not a newbie to it. But the inner feeling of which you're unaware, again, what I just said, the Eight of Swords, the guilt card. This is literally what I'm talking about. That little voice, these little scary looking hands here that come in and go, yeah, but you might do this, and then, but what if you don't have money for this, and what if that happens, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, and immediately starts going on, and you think, oh yeah, I better be careful of that. So maybe I shouldn't do this now. Maybe I should. But the thing is, if you wait, especially if you're talking about business, if you don't put your energy into it, what's eventually going to happen is that if you just say, well, I got to keep putting my energy into something else because that's going to be the more stable thing, then the business is never going to become the stable thing. I mean, it's going to always be, or whatever it is. I mean, there's whatever the situation is that you're trying to build. If you start working on the foundation of the house and say, well, I'm just going to go back and put repairs on the old house and I'll get back to building this house later, the house is just going to sit there unbuilt. you got to build it, right? But we have these little voices where we overthink and we overanalyze, and we allow that kind of energy to come rushing in and kind of just shout down our intuition, right? To shout down our sense of where the new solutions might come from, which might be coming more from the heart space or from the intuition or however you want to think about that, rather than all the crap going on in our head. Okay, the external feeling of which we're aware. Okay, so we have this Eight of Wands energy. This is the traveling card here. And what's interesting about Eight of Wands is about fast movement. So it may feel like things are moving very, very fast, and perhaps that we have to act very fast. Notice we've got the two eights here, right? We've got the Eight of Swords and we've got the Eight of Wands. And so there's, inside we feel stuck, but externally there's this very, very fast movement. And that could mean a couple of things for people. For one, it could be this sense of needing to fix everything. You know what I mean? Like we may be busybodies. We may be running around trying to do 20 things at once. But the traveling card is interesting because it says we're going to move along without having to think or plan too much. There's a matter of the things that kind of come to you. And when I do human design readings for people, one of the aspects is everybody has a strategy in human design. And one of the strategies is, this is largely, I think, the projector strategy, but there is a certain degree of this even in the generators and manifesting generators, which are the majority of people, are the majority of people in that type, that says there's a certain amount of standing back and waiting for opportunities to come to you, rather than, I think the manifestors are the only ones who are expected to just kind of dive in and initiate, like that's their strategy. Most people, their strategy is kind of a level of waiting for the invitation. I've talked about this before. You often find sometimes that it's not the times when you go out there and you put out 50 job applications in a day and then you don't get any jobs. It's like, okay, when you take a break and say, all right, well, whatever, I'll get back to that. And that's when all of a sudden you get the call for the interview, right? That's literally an example that I know that I had from a friend who who's kind of forced to kind of do things every single day. It was like the job center thing in the UK. And, you got to apply for X number of jobs a day. But the one time that the person took a break and didn't apply for a job was when they finally got one. So sometimes it's a matter of waiting for the opportunity to come to you. Again, that's not saying we don't put any effort into anything, but it's just saying sometimes we set things up. If you plant seeds, you have to wait for them to grow. You can't just, can't keep digging them up to go, I don't know, are they doing anything? You have to, or just say, well, I planted them an hour ago and they haven't grown yet. We have to give things some time, and we have to allow things to manifest in the way that they have to. So the traveling card seems to suggest things are going to move fast and we're not going to need to plan too much, which is actually really good news. Now, our advice card, we were just talking about the Justice card here. Very similarly in this deck, we have the Integration card, okay? But I was talking about keeping things in balance. Now, this is the Temperance card, or the Art card in this deck. And as you can see, this is about having masculine and feminine energies in balance, okay? Which is interesting because that's what Rahani actually does. But it's but this is the idea of integration. It's that alchemical process of taking the things that are very... it's that process of taking all of the stuff of our lives It's not a case of saying, okay, I'm going to separate the positive from the negative, and I'm going to try to exorcise the negative from my life, and I'm only going to focus on the positive. The alchemical approach says, okay, as I say to people who are very religious, I say God created everything, all right? Everything is part of your life. And because everything is part of your life, it's not, all of it has a place, okay? Even things like depression, anxiety, illness, all of those things have a place. Sometimes they are there when if we are out of balance, if we're not focusing enough on a certain aspect of our body, or maybe it's kind of draw attention to us about something that maybe is in our ancestry or in our DNA or in something like that. Like, sometimes things happen to draw our attention to something that needs to be, that perhaps maybe we're neglecting, or maybe something that needs to be in balance. But again, it's not that it's it just is. You kind of move in that direction, or it could just be part of a cycle. Okay, this is where we slow down, and this is where we speed up again. So we don't necessarily. A lot of times we try to fight to not be where we are. And when we're being moved towards change, sometimes we fight that too. So this is just like, no, we want to take all of those anxiety impulses, because even that inner voice that I'm talking about, that's a real pain in the butt, is actually has a point too. I mean, in some situations, it may be the kind of thing, like when we look at the Fool card, that may be the little dog that's trying to keep you from going off the cliff. Because sometimes sometimes we may be taking risks that are not good for us, and sometimes we need that. Hey, wait a minute, stop and think about this. That's not a bad thing. But when we're always in that space of trauma, where we always think we're about to do something that's just going to be bad or wrong or a failure or stupid or whatever, then it's kind of like it almost keeps repeating. We're doing it all the time, even when that's not the case. So this is about integrating. It's about transmuting that energy and making it into something that we can work with. Taking that energy of anxiety and saying, okay, well, let's transmute that into opportunity, into saying, okay, well, yes, it's clear I can't do this thing this way anymore. So now I need to get the information about how to balance, how to integrate this, how to change, how to take all that energy and filter it into doing something that is going to move me in the direction that I need to go. And for some reason, I'm thinking about this. This is just making me laugh. There was an article. There was a satire paper, which I don't know. Things in the news these days are so much like satire that I don't know how well they're doing these days. But it was called The Onion, and it's still around. But we don't hear about it quite as much in this environment for some reason. But The Onion used to come out every week. In fact, when I was down in Washington, D.C. once, I remember I saw all of the political interns going by and taking a copy of it as they were going into the congressional buildings and stuff when I was down getting training at the Library of Congress. And it was just kind of funny to see. But I remember there was an article in The Onion about, trying to replace fossil fuels. And of course, remember, this is satire. They're like, Ford is coming out with the new Ford Tantrum. It's a new car that's fueled on road rage. And I was just, that's kind of what it makes me think of, this idea that, all of that energy that we spend on all of this other stuff, which, again, these are expressions of our emotions, which is fine. But a lot of times it has to do with this pent-up energy that we have, where we need to change something and we keep frustrating ourselves and moving in these circles. And so it's about, letting that out, but then also doing something constructive with it. I mean, yeah, it's kind of funny, but that's what kind of came into my head. And then where I live in New Jersey, it's like, yeah, I could totally see somebody be able to power a car on that, because it seems to be everywhere. The outcome card is the Nine of Cups, actually, or the Nine of Water, which is what they call it, the laziness card. And we've seen this a few times. And yeah, that kind of gets back to the message. That may even be more what this is about than even postponement proper. It's more the idea of, yeah, I know I need to change. I know I need to move in this thing, but this thing's comfortable, so I kind of just want to stay here. But this guy's sitting here, enjoying his pina colada or whatever, and sitting here, but everything's breaking up behind him. So the idea is like, okay, the expression when you hear that, if you don't make the change, the universe will do it for you. It's that kind of energy. So I think what it's saying is that yes, we need to integrate those energies that are and find the way to transmute that energy that we have into of of worry and anxiety and saying, oh, I can't do this, or oh, I have to wait until everything else in my life is settled and perfect before I move ahead, and transmuting it into an energy of no, this is an opportunity, and I have the maturity, right? I am capable. I have skills, It's like when somebody's done a particular job for many years and they decide they want to go into something else. They go, oh, but I don't have any skills in that. I'm like, well, look at the skills you had on your other job and find out. Clearly there are cross things. If you did spreadsheets on your other job, then clearly you're good at, using certain programs and doing analysis in another context, right? You can learn that because you were able to learn it here. You have good communication skills. Maybe you have good, public speaking skills. Maybe you have good writing skills. I mean, these are all skills, that are transferable to more than one job. Maybe the actual content and subject matter might be different, but you may still have all the background skills that will enable you to do it. That's just if you're looking for a job. If you're doing your own thing, then okay, well, I did all these things at my job. I always think about that. I was like, hey, I was like the budget officer for all the acquisitions for my university, in terms of what the library acquired. And I was like, okay, well, if I could do that job, and by the way, I was terrible at math when I was young, and I was like, and I every time I would sit down to do the annual reports and everything, I'd be laughing. I was like, yeah, they picked the person who got whose average in math was like a C or a D most of the time, and you're asking me to do this. But, I did it, and I was able to do it comfortably. So, and we have programs to help us do that stuff too. So, yeah, you probably can do more than you think, and it's not like, oh, but I don't have enough of the skills, so I can't do that. Well, yeah, think about what you have. So focus on what you have. Focus on what you have, and in the balancing act, the catastrophizing voice is going to be there, but you want to take that voice and say, okay, well, we're going to integrate the concerns of this voice in, and we're going to have a solution. We're going to come up with an original solution for original to us anyway. And maybe we'll be inspired by something somebody else does, or maybe it will just come out of our own intuition. But that's something, again, I feel like my mantra here is, don't get out of your head a little bit. Always allow your body, your intuition, and all of that to help you, to tell you, because it is trying to tell you things, but it's frequently shouted down because the words in your mind are so loud. So take that time to think about those things. And say to yourself, look, even if it's a risk, even if I do it wrong the first time, that's vulnerability, right? Saying, I believe that, believe in the truth no matter what it turns out to be, and whether success or failure is the outcome of this particular thing that I'm doing, I'm trusting that I'm moving in the right direction. Because sometimes, and that's the thing we don't think about too, sometimes failure is part of the process. It's not always that, we're meant to, sometimes we fail at something just to show us. I always said that was the mantra of my marriage. It was just kind of like when I was younger, I grew up in that milieu that said, oh, if you're a woman, you have to be married and you have to have a family. And that was kind of the assumption I was raised with. So even though I did really well as an undergraduate and I was thinking about going overseas to grad school and doing all this stuff, it was like, but I had this guy I was with and I was like, oh no, I have to get, I have to get married. This is sort of the penultimate thing. And then I got married and then found out, yeah, no, you know what? That's not the penultimate thing. You can live life without that and be perfectly happy. So, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to do the thing, because then if you don't do the thing, you go, oh, what if I had done the thing? So, you know what I mean? Anyway, I don't want to ramble on endlessly here, but that seems to be the message here. Recognize the skills that you have. Take that feeling that you have, that sense of, that sense of fear and anxiety and overwhelmed and drained, I can't do it, and just say, no, I want to transform that energy into energy that will allow me to say, no, that's going to be energy for for problem solving. It's going to fuel what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it not by sitting down and thinking it to death. Obviously, if you have ideas, freestyle. Let's see what comes from your intuition. Jot things down. Write things on the computer. Record it on your phone if you hate writing stuff down. Like, do what you got to do. and then go back and then give a evaluation, all of it, and watch out for the places where you say yes but. Oh yes but, yes but. Watch for those. I mean, not all of those are invalid, but just watch for those. So, okay, that's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Like I said, every day this week I'm probably going to be promoting my dream analysis class, which I'm doing on Saturday. And like I said, I'm trying to do some lectures and workshops at a super cheap rate because I want to make them available to everybody. So, like I said, this one's only $20. So that's really, that usually I offer these workshops for no less than 65 or 70. But but I just figured, no, let's just, that was actually that was the information I got. Just keep this inexpensive. I'm definitely doing some more with Rouhani healing. I'm probably going to be offering some free information sessions on that. So I will post about those. Stay tuned for those if people want to learn more about it and how it works. And like I said, I already have bookings up on my site, and I'll be doing it in person in New Jersey and in Milford, probably. I mean, I still have to sort the details out of that, but that's been under discussion. And and then what else do I have going on this week? I have, and all of my normal appointments. Like I said, I've got the life path readings that I'm definitely been promoting to people as kind of laying the good groundwork for where you're going with everything. So so check out transitionlifecoaching.net and you can see all the stuff I have going on. All of you have a really great rest of your week, and of course I will be here tomorrow morning if you care to join me and check out the morning reading and whatever else I feel inspired to say. So have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.